Well, what is going on, everybody? We are back for more Witch on the Holy Night, and today we are going to be doing, we're finally going to be doing chapter, I believe this is going to be chapter 8.5, the Carnegie case. I have no idea what we're in for here, but I guess we'll just have to see. I hear this is actually pretty lengthy, so yeah, I'm glad about that because I still want more of the story. Hopefully, they will be done with the translation of this, maybe chapter 8, or not chapter 8, but chapter 9 soon. But yeah, here we go, guys. This is chapter 8.5, the Carnegie case. Even if one is constantly busy, so long as they lead a normal human life, periods of interim will inevitably arise. For instance, before and after meals. The time spent cooking a meal and the short rest that follows could hardly be disregarded. This is especially true for knowledge workers. After meals, blood does not flow to the brain as intensely as usual because the body is ensuring digestion. Therefore, I know about Nike. It was named after the ancient Greek goddess, am I correct? Held in Athena's hand, it's not the shield but the tiny goddess of victory. She represents victory during sporting events, right? As expected of Miss Alco and her fascination with major brand products, she never fails to be knowledgeable about such niche things. The resident intellectual was resting nonchalantly on the sofa. Alco was making conversation with the robin on the table. Flapping its wings, the bluebird was striving to establish the pretense of a warm atmosphere after the meal. Alice was occupied with a book in the conservatory. About 30 minutes had passed since they decided to take a break from their discussion regarding how they should approach the enemy Magus who had arrived outside. How about Adidas? Perhaps it stems from adios. Isn't it just a regular name? It's like the fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm, you know? The label took on the name of the brothers who founded the company. It's not like the Brothers Grimm invented those fairy tales. They gathered little-known traditional tales that were conveyed orally, translated them into stories, and arranged them with care. They're more akin to scholars than artists. And they were sort of fakers as well. What about Anderson then? The Little Mermaid and Thumbelina are super famous. Oh, and there's the Ugly Duckling too. I think the Emperor's new clothes is great. I feel sympathy towards this transparent king. Anderson would be more of a writer than a scholar. They say that his desire to write was born from his indignation toward the upper class and the general public, as well as people who were content with shallow happiness, and even from his resentment toward the image of women. He didn't take up the pen to satiate his curiosity, but rather to appeal to emotions. I'm reluctant to simplify things like this, but if we had to tell them apart, Mother Goose's works would be song, the Grimms would be tales, and Anderson's allegories. And Hutch and Honeybees an anime. By the way, Miss Alco, what's the etymology of ASICS? ASICS? What's ASICS? It's an acronym for something. Well, a friend explained it to me in elementary school, but it could just be an urban legend. ASICS was originally a firm created after the merging of 3 different companies, and all 3 presidents combined make 6 legs, yeah? So it's Ashy 6. Leg 6? In the conservatory, Alice dropped her book on the floor and tightly bit her lip. She made an effort to catch her breath calmly, as if nothing had happened. Or at the very least, she thought that she had managed to make them believe so. I really don't get her sense of humor. Maybe that's not it. Maybe she's upset because it was too boring. Yeah, that's kind of a weird reaction to have. I'm not sure what was going on with her there. Because even when she gets really angry, she forces a smile. I can see it now and again. She makes that kind of face behind my back when I read her diary. If you read me more, I'll kill you, is what it means. I mean, she ought to forgive me. I read it accidentally. If I'm stripped of all my investigative capacities, only my instinct telling me to return to the fold will remain. The robin complained, flapping its wings. Alco sighed compassionately towards Alice, reflecting upon the annoyance of the pet bequeathed to the girl. Ugh. I'm home. Oh, you're both here today. At that moment, Sojiro made his appearance. It seemed that he had just got home from work. Welcome home. Good work out there. Relaxed by our conversation with the robin, Alco greeted him. He then felt a slight reaction from the conservatory. I already ate dinner, so I won't be eating here tonight. Anyway, I'm going to take a nap before my night shift. Sojiro greeted Alice in the conservatory with a wave before he left. A suspicious noise followed him just as he began to disappear into the hallway. Oh, did the robin attack him? Hey, you dropped something. Oh, okay, he dropped something. I thought that was the sound of the robin, like, attacking him. Raising her head just over the back of the sofa, Aoko called Sojiro back. Ah, I forgot this was in my pocket. Sojiro walked back very naturally, giving no impression that he was in a hurry, and reached for the fallen object, something like an envelope on the ground. I think Aoko's a little bit too curious about that, probably. She'll probably try to find out what's in the envelope. It was undoubtedly human nature. Even if one is disinterested, their curious gaze will be directed toward motion. Aoko followed Sojiro's hand, intrigued, and... Oh. I guess that's money from his job? A bund? A bundle of cash, she thought, muffling the coarse scream of her heart as she jumped off the sofa. What is it, Aozaki? Huh? Well, it's, Before this pure ingenious gaze, even Aoko was at a loss for words. Her own curiosity, which had driven her to jump at the sight of money, was chafing her even more. Nothing. That's right, this is just your paycheck, but still, that's quite a salary. Can I have some? Where's my rent, Sojiro? After a brief moment of unease, Sojiro smiled at Aoko, who had gotten the wrong idea, before going back to his room. That's kind of suspicious how I had, like, no response to that. Something intrigued Aoko slightly, but she returned to the sofa. That is how it all started. This was the beginning of a trivial agitation that the Robin would later call the Carnegie case. Oh god, is this going to be more slice-of-life shenanigans? You already know this is going to be just another slice-of-life chapter. I thought it was actually going to be a chapter that might progress the plot somewhat, but maybe not. Unless this chapter has, like, multiple parts, like there's going to be, like, part 1 of 8.5, part 2, part 3. The next day at approximately the same time as the previous day's incident. When Aoko went down to unwind with some tea, Sojiro and the Robin were in the midst of a debate in the living room. According to that person, you should try to exercise kindness every time you meet someone, and at the end of the day you have to carefully consider the fruits of that kindness. Even a single kind word can stand out significantly to the recipient, bringing unexpected happiness. Whoa, so that was the reason you gave me beef jerky. That said, it doesn't seem like kindness to me, but rather what we traditionally call a bribe, no? I can read you like an open book. Because of Sojiro's fervor, the conversation looked more like an exchange of consultation or solicitation than idle talk. In any case, he's still weird. Aoko ignored what was happening in the living room and entered the conservatory. Sojiro's coat was hung over one of the chairs. Hey Sojiro, don't leave your coat lying around. Either hang it on the rack in the living room or take it to your room. She swallowed the rest of her words. Oh, but he has money. An envelope identical to the one from the previous day was sticking out of Sojiro's coat pocket. Furthermore, it was slightly thicker than yesterday's. She would not make the same mistake from the day prior, getting starry-eyed before a large sum of money. Aoko was consciously aware that she was the student council president and must serve as a role model for the other students. Come on, making tea. She feigned indifference and eavesdropped on the conversation in the living room. Sojiro was engaged in his discussion with the Robin and apparently failed to notice Aoko's voice. The loneliness of the city is the same for everyone. A good deed, even if it may appear purely as senseless violence at first, will become a benefit in the long run. I see. After all, it costs nothing to exercise kindness. You should always show mercy. Yes, however, she says nothing is more expensive than that which is free of cost. Haha, make up your mind, moron. Are they talking about me? Forgetting what she came here for, which was making tea, Aoko listened in closely to the living room. She could no longer ignore the suspicions looming over her. She also says that in order to find happiness, you can start out in a negative light. Even if someone asks for money or calls you a crook, you can behave like a devil knowing that one day they will benefit from your action. The joy you bring to people seems to compensate for the ill intentions. This saying, I know it, but it sounds oddly wrong. She was not too keen on this, but Aoko agreed with the Robin. Those were the words of a famous businessman. And the actual quote was, if we want to find happiness, let's stop thinking about gratitude or ingratitude and give for the inner joy of giving. Or, people with abundant savings should use them to enrich society as opposed to simply preserving their wealth. I know this one too, but you're completely off track here. Once again, Aoko was, however reluctantly, of the same mind. Those were the words of an even more famous businessman, and the actual quote was supposed to be, the rich should endeavor to use their surplus wealth to improve society rather than misspending their money. perhaps only money can be relied upon. After all, a wife and children won't remain by your side forever. You may lose them permanently in an unfortunate accident. Money, however, is a different matter. Happiness isn't something you can purchase, but it makes money. Nowadays, for this person, the kindness of others in a cozy bed are enough. I get the feeling that these words didn't match her personality at all. She felt a burst of anxiety rising, but paying attention to Sojiro's every word would take her all day. For starters, Aoko could not presently afford to worry about someone else. The battle against the enemy Magus endured behind the scenes at this very moment. It's none of my business after all, huh? Aoko turned her back to the living room with a shrug, blithely presuming that she would forget all about this disturbance by the next day. And she probably didn't. Sojiro, where's your money? Can I see your money, Sojiro? Did you have any more money today? It is kind of weird how, it's not really weird that Sojiro has quite a bit of money considering, the amount of work he does, how many jobs he probably has. So, him making so much money shouldn't be too shocking. I'm home. Nobody cares. As per the daily routine, the young worker arrived with a smile on his face. Work was surely a wonderful thing. Therefore, the reply from Aoko, who was seated comfortably on the sofa, also became naturally amicable. Good. Congrats on your efforts. You can go rest now. You've been working since noon today, haven't you? You can leave the cooking to me for tonight, so... What? However, her smiling face suddenly froze. What's wrong, Aozaki? You do look like you just heard one of Kenobi's jokes. Nothing's wrong. I just can't reasonably keep my mouth shut any longer. Take out what's in your pocket now. I see a huge bulge in your pocket. Is that more money, or are you just happy to see me? Unable to grasp the reasoning behind this scolding, Sojiro dug out the contents of his pocket. Oh no, it's even more money. He put the familiar brown envelope down on the table. However, it was too thick to qualify as ordinary. Majestic and magnificent, this spell was misleading, and it was far too alluring. Without a doubt, it contained a wad of money. Well, what's that, Shizuki? Alice inquired artlessly. Her eyes appeared to glimmer, but it was definitely not an illusion. It's my pay. I see. That's great news. We'll have a feast tomorrow. The wad of money before their eyes left them indifferent. I wouldn't say that. It seems like Alice is pretty excited about it. The same cannot be said of the only straight-thinking person in the house. Really now, Sojiro, on your knees now. Tell us the meaning of this. She had a firmer grasp on the gravity of the situation than the main person involved. Explain. What? Why, how you got your hands on that wad of cash? What have you been doing lately? By all accounts, it doesn't seem like a legal job to me. It is legal. Well, I was told that this new job doesn't go against the law, at least, and as long as I do it right, I won't be in any danger. It pays more than the one at the convenience store, and even someone like me can do it easily. Actually, I honestly would not be too surprised if Sojiro was actually involved in some kind of illegal activity and he doesn't know any better because of his naivete. Aoko was falling apart. Her dismay turned into irritation, engendering dizziness in the process. In any case, I was told this new job is not against the law. How is that different from a drunkard claiming sobriety? Come to your senses. There's no job that doubles the salary of its employees each day. Now tell me what this job entails, and make it snappy, because regardless of how you see it, you're being duped. Sojiro shut his mouth. He would not waver in the face of Aoko's menacing demeanor. No, I can't disclose anything, not even to you. It's not the kind of thing I can tell others about. That just makes it even more suspicious that you can't talk about it. But don't worry, you can say it involves helping people. Also, I only met with the mediator once, and the payment is always in cash. You half-witted hick! That's precisely what makes it suspicious. I swear, Aoko hurled internally, tapping the ground with her foot. After the onslaught of the red flags such as new job, the pay is good, anyone can do it, and I refuse to say what it is, it was impossible for her to remain calm. Nevertheless, Sojiro obstinately kept his mouth shut. They had only known each other for a short time, but Aoko had a pretty good understanding of the boy's personality. He had a strong sense of duty, and when he made a decision, changing his mind would prove difficult. In moments like this, Sojiro knew well how to hold his tongue. What a pain. Getting any information from him will be a challenge, Aoko concluded, calling it quits. Clueless to what could be going through her head, Sojiro astonishedly asked, "Why are you upset?" Oh no, that was the wrong thing to say. Indeed, there's no point in doubling down, Aoko thought to herself as she threw in the towel. because this job is too good to be true. Alice, you agree with me, don't you? Well, I don't exactly see where you're going with this, but I think Shizuki should do it even more. Because she just wants him to get more money. In short, Alice was useless from the start. Aoko sat down on the sofa. Aozaki, it's alright. I understand. I'm not sure why, but you're not going to talk about it, are you? After all, you're just a roommate, and I have no right to be quibbling. Shoo, she said, driving Sojiro away with a simple hand gesture. Displeased, Aoko shut herself up, but she clearly had no intention of dropping this issue. Regardless of how Alice saw things, Aoko could not give up on Sojiro. He's clearly being tricked, and at the end, it'll fall back on me. For his sake, she had to get him out of this so-called new job as quickly as possible. It was her consideration for him as a friend, and her responsibility as president of the student council. However, Aoko told herself, morality and good conscience are both crucial notions, but honestly, being a student only living off the financial support of my parents, this money would be difficult to throw away. Yes, even if I force him to quit this job, throwing away the money he earned so far would be a total waste. Whatever, I'm gonna have to act in the shadows. The devil president of the student council whispered, seated deep in the sofa as she concocted her plan. Because her heart is set to devil mode by default, there was no need to make the effort to switch over. This was both a blessing and a curse. Oh boy, so she's actually going to investigate Sojiro's job. The following day at noon. So even if it were blood money, Aoko would still keep it. It'd be like, well, it's money. Aoko waited for her roommate to leave before using the phone in the hallway. Hello, Tobimaru? Sojiro is involved in a shady plot. Do you have any idea what's going on? Oh no, so the two of them are investigating? The first train of the day could be heard in the distance. At this time of day, the city still wavered between wakefulness and drowsiness. Tsukiji Tobimaru wandered through the districts frequented by the first lights of dawn, enjoying the fresh morning air. You gotta admit, the city is beautiful when human beings are nowhere to be seen. Tobimaru had become accustomed to mumbling this litany. This area of the district, rich with eye-catching decorations, was the epitome of human desire. It was like a fairground booth, but it was a starkly disparate sight at this time of day. The avenue was completely desolate. The hushed early morning city appeared to be imbued with a post-festival melancholy. He caught the sidelong glance of a worker warily cleaning up the waste from the day prior in front of a bar. Elsewhere at a restaurant service door, a chef began preparing for the day while stifling a yawn. The birds were walking quietly on the road, and there were no engine roars to disturb the silence. This distinctive atmosphere of rejuvenation only revealed itself in cities during the early morning hours. The interstice between daily life and recreation. In this hectic society, it was the sole isolated moment of the day that offered a respite of stillness. That's right, my cigarettes are... Feeling a vacancy between his lips, he searched his coat pocket to find nothing but receipts. Tobimaru tightened his scarf as the breeze grew even chillier. He wandered aimlessly in the business district, and when the morning's enchantment faded, he let himself be carried away to the central park. His stroll had no specific purpose. It was neither a healthy walk nor a jogging session. He was simply returning home after a sleepless night of depravity. How stupid. What the hell am I doing? He unabashedly criticized himself while drinking a can of coffee that he bought from a vending machine. He was not averse to having fun all night, but since he was too young to drink alcohol, it was overwhelmingly dull. Thus, as of late, he would come home early in the morning, opting for this in favor of staying home. However, he was beginning to grow tired of it. So he would go party with the adults and not drink anything. I can only imagine what he's actually up to. Well, I can't help it if the family meets every year-end. His mumbling sounded like an excuse, and it put an even greater emphasis on his bitter smile. He killed time in this manner because, in a sense, he had nowhere to return to. In the Tsukiji clan, a family reunion was held every New Year, under the leadership of his grandfather. As a result, the dispersed siblings had gathered several days earlier to sojourn the Tsukiji house. If Tobimaru was there, he would be a source of conflict. He was prepared to face the consequences, but to best avoid quarrels, he had chosen not to go home. If he stayed home, he would be indicted for anything and everything. It was in his nature to start fights over whatever he could. Whenever he defeated his opponents, their hatred toward him only grew, and it also left a burden on his father. Furthermore, there was nothing more exhausting and derisory than being obsessed with a war for inheritance like his brothers and sisters were. So he's a rich kid, and he doesn't really care for the inheritance, basically. Tsukiji Tobimaro was the fifth son of the Tsukiji family, whose members were prominent landowners in the town of Misaki. At that time, they were the reigning major landowners, but their clan had been enriched primarily after the war. Prior to that, they were a small noble family on the brink of ruin. The person responsible for this restoration of the Tsukiji family was Tsukiji Kimikuni, whom the family welcomed as its son-in-law, patriarch of the current Tsukiji family, and Tobimaro's grandfather. It was the abilities of the man Kimikuni that saved the Tsukiji family from withering away when its influence declined after the war. The members of the Tsukiji family, who led the region as representatives of the Shinto temples, needed Kimikuni's capital, whereas he needed their connections to establish himself in the city of Misaki. The two parties had united for the sake of monetary gain, but the Tsukiji family made a single miscalculation. The management skills of the man they had reluctantly welcomed after meeting just one time were quite extraordinary. Kimikuni, supposedly at the bottom of the barrel as son-in-law, had developed Misaki's industry, and from there created many companies outside the city. He controlled the inner city and had taken control of its surroundings with his own means, without the help of the Tsukiji family. In order to deal with the interior, the enemy's line of defense had to be neutralized beforehand. Therefore, he cut off their funding. The illustrious family of the Tsukiji had been repressed by Kimikuni through this economic chokehold. In less than 10 years, not a single member of the Tsukiji family could stand to oppose Kimikuni. The merchant who had been initially taken in as a son-in-law had become the undisputed head of the family, both in name and substance. On the other hand, Kimikuni also had many children. Indeed, one of the requirements to succeed the head of the family was to prevent the Tsukiji lineage from dying out. His 3 sons and daughter had been married to relatives in the family, and so, thanks to Kimikuni, the declining ties that united the Tsukiji family regained some of their appeal. Wait a minute. 3 sons and daughters had been married to relatives in the family. So, inbreeding. You're saying they're inbreeding. That's not a good thing. I mean, it is Japan, so I can't be too shocked, but still, that's not good. Okay, so yeah, this sounds really similar to another story I heard about a witch giving gold to a certain wealthy family, and yeah, if you understand that reference, then you get a cookie. Tobimaro was the 5th child of Tsukiji Hideyoshi, the eldest son. However, his mother was not part of the Tsukiji family. He was the child of Hideyoshi's mistress, who had considered this affair a simple venture. This was Tsukiji Tobimaro's situation in the Tsukiji family. I'm guessing they're disowning him because of that? I don't know. Tobimaro was born from Tobimaro was born from an adulterous relationship. That's probably why they don't care about him. He had managed to, at a minimum, maintain his dignity because he was the child of Hideyoshi, Kimikuni's eldest son. But it was easy to imagine what kind of persecution Tobimaro had suffered from his parents and siblings in his awkward position. As a child, this environment swiftly molded his personality. What do you mean you're not a child of inbreeding, like the rest of us? His exceptional quickness of comprehension and the detachment with which he performed his role were naturally amplified by the mere act of living within the Tsukiji family. That inattention, however, had drawn him into a bigger problem. Tsukiji Kimikuni. Unfortunately, this great man, who was still in business, appreciated his grandson, the child of an unknown woman, more than his many sons, more than Tobimaro's father, Hideyoshi himself. That's pretty surprising, actually. I mean, I would think that he would be sort of disowned by everybody. Kimikuni, a man of the people, was not really keen on inheritance by blood. Furthermore, this person had yet to give up any of his personal fortune to his sons. This is sounding more and more like that story about the witch giving the rich family, or the rich family gold. The more I read about it, honestly, I can't help but think it might have been somewhat inspired by that. But I think this is probably the case with a lot of rich families, especially like in fiction. The whole problem of inheritance and people fighting over the inheritance. So it's not necessarily something that's exclusive to that. There's nothing more abhorrent in this world than the blood of the Tsukiji. I never wish to have any of you. Kimikuni's words, delivered at each and every family reunion, expressed his true feelings. He took a liking to Tobimaro after they had fortuitously discussed one of these regular meetings. Since then, immediately upon returning from work, he had been playing various games with his grandson, such as Go. The whole family was on pins and needles, in fear that Kimikuni would ultimately choose Tobimaro as his heir. Well, I guess that's another reason why they don't like him. For the grandfather's sons, Tobimaro had gone from completely lacking in value to becoming an ever-growing nuisance. The threat he personified was now causing fear and aversion, even in Kimikuni's eldest son and Tobimaru's dad, Tsukiji Hideyoshi, who was slated to succeed Kimikuni. As a result, Tobimaru came to be ignored by Hideyoshi, his own father. At present, they were not living together. Before Kimikuni, Hideyoshi maintained good relations with his son, but that would only last until the head of the family passed away, or until he recommended Tobimaru for the inheritance. After that would be war. This story would be anything but pleasant, in any case. I swear, Grandpa can't read the situation at all. Tobimaru scratched his head in disbelief. Nevertheless, he was not particularly concerned. On the surface, they appeared to share a pleasant relationship, but in the shadows, there waged a vitriolic inheritance war. Things were not much different from how they were before he met Kimikuni. His father, his most eminent defender, had become his greatest foe. To Tobimaru, who generally kept poor relations with his family, an extra enemy made little difference. Tobimaru would repeat his early homecoming on a daily basis to avoid meeting with his relatives. As of late, they had been meticulously watching his every move. Even those who scorned him, and his siblings who partook in violence to entertain themselves, no longer attacked him in the open. At worst, they openly displayed sarcasm. Basically, Tobimaru yearned for peace. His philosophy was to avoid problems. As such, he did not intend to take revenge on them or meet Kimikuni's expectations. His father's concerns were nothing but illusions. His relatives were getting excited for naught, and Tobimaru was determined to remain a prodigal son. However, his brothers, who were around his age, harbored a different hatred for him than the adults. Probably because of either the persecutions they made him suffer in the past or the turnaround in their situation. He will surely exact his revenge one day. Feeling such fear, they could no longer ignore Tobimaru. They don't even know how to lay the groundwork. If they'd come at me as boldly as Aozaki does, that'd at least be somewhat exciting. For Tobimaru, family issues were annoying at best and certainly did not warrant any concern. He was already accustomed to human malice, like having avoided being killed by his own exceedingly violent siblings, and sometimes even by people with clearly murderous intent. He had also witnessed indecency from his older brothers, confined to their privileged classes and elitist beliefs as they toyed with the lives of others. It was incredibly grueling. Each of these events would have sufficed to disrupt his outlook on life, yet he remained completely apathetic. So this is it, he thought. Tobimaru had lost interest in these kinds of things because he realized that these people would find them exciting. Well, everyone has their own priorities. But I don't feel for my old man. You can't be this grandpa's son with just any plain character. This issue of inheritance was not significant to Tobimaru. He had no clear vision of his future yet. All he knew was that after his 20th birthday, he would definitively reject every value advocated by these people and obtain his freedom. Until then, everything was a learning experience. I should enjoy these stupid nights of debauchery while I still have time, he thought cynically as he strolled along the promenade in the morning. Oh? When he arrived at the main square, he noticed that a bench was already occupied. A group of blackbirds that resembled crows fluttered around on the square. Sitting on the bench was a girl clad in black, and a well-dressed elderly man who was hanging his head over the cane in his hand. He couldn't pretend they were just strangers. Since he saw them here, he had to go over and greet them, Tobimaru thought as he started toward the bench. To a passerby, the girl and the old man could very well be mistaken for a grandfather and his grandchild. At first glance, he seemed to be a soft-hearted old man making conversation with his granddaughter. But in reality... Alice, even now I sometimes have to ask myself, where did I go wrong? I've opened up every conceivable service. I've never neglected to thank my employees, nor to smile at my visitors. Yet, this era didn't choose me. On the contrary, it denied my untapped artistry. That fucking face. How mortifying. Go to hell, you lousy, rotten journalists. Where did this image of a nightmarish creature come from? Does there exist a mascot out there as charming as this one? I think not. And yet, they see nothing wrong with a mouse walking on two legs. Oh, that's an obvious reference to Mickey. Think about it realistically. A rodent keeping a dog as a pet. How terrifying is that? Wild animals domesticating one another? It's completely unethical. Could you imagine if a human being were in the place of the pet? Well, now that you mention it, now that you say it that way, it's a little bit weird. In truth, it was rather the tragic portrait of a young girl being accosted by a troublesome old man. Fortunately, he managed to calm himself down at last. Oh, I apologize, Yorihiko. Mind your manners, he said to himself before warily lowering his head. Please tell me, Alice, What was the problem with my Kitsy-chan? Horns. You should have given it horns. The girl in black gave an earnest reply as she stared at the old man's demoralized face. No, horns wouldn't do. That could get kids hurt. If I'm to make an impact, I'd prefer it be psychological rather than physical. The young girl nodded all the more sincerely at the implication of those words. Well, Tomomaru wanted nothing to do with those two, but he was in their line of sight. If he paid them no mind, the girl certainly would not make a fuss, but the old man would likely grumble and shout. So I guess the old man must have been the, manager of the Kitsy Land. That's unfortunate, because that place has since been completely trashed. Good morning. Are you already moping this early in the day, old man Tokitsu? You'll end up kicking the bucket if you keep dwelling in the past. You'll be better off accepting your failure so that your sons won't have to worry. Oh, well, look what we have here. If it isn't the little nighthawk brat. Good morning, Toby. I see you're up as early as ever. I spent the night outside, nothing as healthy as you. Hey, hello to you too, Lady Koonji. The young girl raised her head gently, moved by Tomomaru's greeting. The witch from the hill, Koonji Alice herself, was seated on the bench. We haven't met since the party 2 years ago, have we? To see you coming into town unescorted is an exceptionally rare sight. I wouldn't go that far. It's precisely at this time of day that the birds are going away. I often use this opportunity to walk there alone. Oh, I didn't know about that, so you're not a sheltered little girl. No. By the way, I spotted you walking around several times with quite the gloomy face. You can roam around as much as you like, but make sure you don't cause any trouble for Aoko. It's more so the opposite, I think. It's like Aoko causes him trouble. Thanks for the tip. I'll try to keep that in mind. Tomomaru did not hesitate to go and greet her, but he did not know Koonji Alice very well. She was only one of his family's connections. Nevertheless, the scale and history of the Tsukiji family, with its influence restricted to the city of Misaki, and those of the Koonji family and its countrywide importance, were vastly disproportional. Originally, Koonji Alice and Tsukiji Tomomaru were not of the same standing. If he was able to speak with her in this way, it was thanks to their mutual friend, Aozaki Aoko. No way! Toby, are you friends with Alice? Eh? You two aren't in a relationship, are you? Don't say a word. If you admit it now, we'll have a serious problem. Toby, I could have a sudden heart attack. You would be found as the culprit, and Alice the murder weapon. Of course, in order to describe the cause of death, you would have to write, according to him, it was a ruthless love sickness. Lady Koonji, what are you doing with this miserable old man? Is he another one of your father's associates? He's my correspondent. He possesses antiques unworthy of his rank. Aoko and I are responsible for collecting them little by little. Although it was practically their first meeting, Tomomaru and Alice were ignoring the old man with outstanding synergy. Can you really blame them, though? This guy's kind of like a raving lunatic. I concede. Alice is so charming when she hides her embarrassment. Oh, no. I'm surprised. I think it's only him being an old man that keeps Alice from, like, reacting violently to... Well, Aoko would definitely do it. I'm not sure about Alice. I think she would, but it'd be less obvious. She would try to trap him somehow or do something, try to trick him. By the way, you may call me Yulik. The elderly Tokitsu gently clutched the young girl's hand. Alice's face took on that of a doll. Toki, I'm looking for well-painted ceramic cups. Don't you have anything from the Lam workshops of the 1900s? I have some. Of course I have some. I'll have it ready for you the next time you come with your scary friend. Just like that, she brilliantly guided the old man's secret intentions. Old art is your thing now. I'm surprised that Topan's wealth hasn't already been squandered. That's right. This old man was the celebrity of Yashirogi, former head of the nationwide limited company Tokitsu Pan and current business consultant Tokitsu Yorihiko himself. Where in me do you see an old man? For an artist, old age is associated with a loss of sensitivity, but I'm still burning with passion. I'm still young and sultry. I still take just as much pleasure in courting a young girl ready to bloom. Okay, that makes this whole situation that much weirder, and that face. Holy shit. Yeah, that definitely makes this situation really fucking awkward, dude. It makes it seem like he's trying to pick up Alice. At my age, we stop caring about what others think. Chatting with young girls becomes our reason for living. Are you a young man or an old geezer? Make up your mind. Forgive me, that was uncouth. Please disregard those previous statements. Well, I don't know if the police will be able to do that. I'm just saying that spending leisurely moments in the company of young girls is a wonderful thing. Toby, you agree, don't you? Don't lump me in with the likes of you. Sorry, but I prefer older women. Wow. He came right out and admitted it. For your information, I'm not the type to rule over girls less than half my age. Well, of course, in your case, that would be illegal. You're 17. I don't think I need to tell you the age that would be when divided by 2. Old Tokitsu nodded. Tobimaru's rude speech was no skin off the old man's back. His personality is certainly larger than life, Tobimaru involuntarily thought to himself in admiration. In any case, I just came to say hello. This troublemaker will take his leave now. Enjoy your little chat. What's wrong, Toby? Fate brought us together, so let's enjoy the moment. If you want, you can come to my villa. Should I call for the helicopter? Come on, it'll be fun. No thanks, but I appreciate the offer. If an acquaintance saw me, they'd think I'm bourgeois or something, wouldn't they? I'd rather avoid that kind of situation right now. That's too bad, the old man Tokitsu answered, since Tobimaru's phrasing had seemingly allowed him to grasp the situation. He may have been retired, but he was still the great man who turned Toppan into a nationally acclaimed company. He had probably recognized in an instant just how complex Tobimaru's family circumstances were. Send Mick my regards, and tell him it's high time he retires and gets back in touch with his children. I'm counting on you to deliver the message. Alright. Not that it'll make a difference, but I'll be sure to tell him. See you around, Koonju. If we ever encounter each other on another fine morning, I'd like to speak with you again. She remained silent, expressing neither consent nor refusal. Tobimaru shrugged and walked out of the main square. So I'm guessing they're going to Tobimaru's perspective now because Aoko called him up and was like, hey, Tobimaru, can you help me out with this thing? You know, help me to investigate whatever's going on with Sojiro and his quote-unquote job. As he left the park and continued wandering at his own discretion, he found himself in the area under reconstruction. A relay station was being built there. The Tsukiji family was involved in the project, but the majority of the financing was outsourced from a foreign company. We're building this relay station in preparation for the coming decade. The mobile communications industry is projected to evolve at a frantic pace. We want to spread our technology in the town of Misaki as a model for the future. The correspondent sent by the foreign company shook hands with his father, Hitayoshi, with this declaration of intent. Sooner or later, I believe that my daughter will be coming to live in Misaki Town. I do hope your son will form a close relationship with her. So, an arranged marriage, great. He was a handsome man who evoked a sense of mild-mannered authority, a distinctive trait of Westerners. This attempt to affiliate his daughter with Tobimaru demonstrated that he had conducted an inquiry into the Tsukiji family's inheritance war. It's about time my dad realized he's being sucked up to. He used to have such a discerning eye, and now he's taking bullshit from some Yankee. Besides, I don't want to have to deal with that blonde chick. All she has to do is use that ass of hers to grab the attention of sailors from where she lives. Damn. Tobimaru froze at the sound of his own whining. If he started seriously hurling insults, there would be no end to it. He had walked long enough, and the morning was completely over. Wandering about for any longer would do him no good. Time to go back, huh? Turning his back on the unfinished relay station, Tobimaru made his way home. An hour later. Young master, you have a phone call. Back at the Tsukiji's main residence, Tobimaru grabbed the phone from his housekeeper. Hello? Hello, Tobimaru? Sojiro is involved in some shady business. Do you have any idea what's going on? The call was from Maozaki Aoko, informing him of the urgent situation. Oh boy. I wonder what's going to come of this. Is he working for drug dealers or something like that? Maybe he's dealing the blood chip. That thing from the Karno Kyokan movies. I guess it's supposed to be some form of cocaine. Well, that's the situation. Incredible. Nothing about that was reassuring. It seems Sojiro has been caught up in a suspicious job. Emergency meeting. Rendezvous at Central Park immediately. 10 minutes had passed since he returned to the park following the call. Having been informed of the situation, Tsukiji Tobimaru felt a slight headache. He was always afraid something like this would happen one day. Incidentally, the girl and the old man were no longer by the bench. You don't need to tell me that. I'm well aware. I hate to get hung up on someone's part-time job, but isn't this fishy in every conceivable way? He hasn't told you anything about it? Sorry, I don't have anything interesting to share. Sojiro is very secretive about his work. He thinks that because he was entrusted with them, he can't speak to others about them, or something like that. Sadly, when it comes to other people, he's as airtight as a tin can. He won't confess until he takes a beating. Well, well, so that's how it is. You must really think highly of him. What are you implying? Nothing. Don't read too much into it. You always get upset over the smallest things. If a girl like you is willing to take care of him, even outside of school, then you must really like him. You've got it all wrong. If he's causing trouble, it'll reflect on me as the student council president. No matter what it looks like, I'm only doing this to avoid unnecessary risks. Alright. As president, you can't just overlook it, can you? Exactly. Something wrong with that? No, there's nothing wrong. In fact, you have my respect for this. That's our iron president of the student council for you. Even on holidays, you work only to protect the reputation of the school. Strange emphasis on only. Otherwise, you're absolutely right. You got a problem with that? She asked, cutting all comments short. From the perspective of Tobimaro, who knew about their cohabitation, this bluff held a lot of charm. No, not really. But in this case, my role as vice president means I have to go along with you. You're inquiring about Sojiro for the good of the school, while I'm assisting you in looking after him as a friend. Uh-oh. The dare is showing. Tobimaro's words were in line with what she asked, but Aoko looked rather skeptical. Good. Now, since that's been decided, shall we get started right away? Knowing you, his workplace has surely been located already, right? What's the address? Well, I tailed him, but he managed to shake me off. I know he headed to the 2nd district from the train station, but then... As one would expect from the vice president, he was accustomed to these things. That's why he naturally refrained from retorting. You tailed him? The 2nd district, huh? In that corner, nothing but pachinko and arcades come to mind. There's no place where you can earn tens of thousands of yen in a single day. Exactly, and if I did know a place like that, I'd be tempted to give it a whirl. Tobimaro, I'm asking you just to be sure. In Masaki's old district, pachinko parlors are the only gambling establishment where earning money is possible, right? Yeah, my dad said that all gambling houses have to abide by the legislation on casinos. The sponsor of the old Masaki district is a sympathetic old man. They say his goal is to achieve a legal evil. Apparently, he's more than happy with just managing the pachinko. So, they think that Sojiro might be gambling, or doing pachinko machines. Yeah, I know that. I just wanted to make sure. But in that case, the plot thickens. Aside from gambling, I can't see what other job would allow you to make progressively higher rates. Yeah, he's rolling in dough as if he were selling his own body, like, how much for the night? What? She let out an exclamation of stupor. For a few moments, Aoko remained speechless, struggling to process his last statement. Bro, it was a joke, calm down. What? His body? Tobimaro? Yeah, as a painter's model, for instance. I hear it pays pretty well. Yeah, of course that's what he meant. Yeah, they say the compensation is generous. Besides, art students are rich. I guess you're right. If it's just that, then it's not really that big of a... I mean, obviously it has to be nude. So, he'd been exposing himself after all. Because they lacked concrete information, it seemed that the excessive discussion had gotten their priorities mixed up. They knew neither what the job was about, nor the location of the workplace, and were therefore unable to do anything about it. We have no choice but to trail Sojiro again tomorrow, and with the two of us, he shouldn't be able to escape our sight. Sounds like a good plan. We don't have any other leads anyway, so let's wait until tomorrow. Just because we know he's rolling in dough doesn't mean we can do something. Wait a minute. Rolling in dough? Tobimaro frowned in careful thought. The more he thought about it, the greater his premonition grew. His face began to exhibit a grim expression. What's wrong, Tobimaro? Did you remember something? Yeah. Just one thing, thinking back on it, I know an idiot who's been inexplicably rolling in dough lately too. Oh no, is it Kinomi? Oh yeah, that's right. Kinomi had some conversation with Sojiro about how he can make a lot of money, I think. For the past 3 days, he's been pouring money down the drain and organizing blind dates left and right. The main issue is that this idiot just so happens to be in the same class as Sojiro. A moment of silence set in. Aoko nodded as if she had everything figured out. Then, it's that guy, isn't it? Let's catch him right now, she said before the two of them left the park. Yep, Kinomi. Definitely Kinomi. Yep, I fucking knew it. Hiya! Your favorite Kinomi is here. When duty calls, I cut class without a second thought, remedials or otherwise, because I simply can't refuse an invitation to have some fun. Suspect A promptly took the bait. The two student council members knew full well that their target would be at the school for remedial classes for his failed subjects. About 10 minutes had elapsed since Tobimaro requested a female student to convey the following message to him. Come out to the front of school. I have an exciting plan to share with you. Kanomi Hosuke arrived at the main gate at the speed of light. Hi, sorry to call during remedial classes. Huh? Don't worry about it. I got out of work with the excuse that I had remedials to go to, but classes pissed me off, so I signed the attendance sheet before hitting the nurse's office for a nap. And while I was dying of boredom, I got your message, and so rejoicing brought me here. Rejoice, child. Congrats, he said, raising a thumb to express his enthusiasm. I see, and I was worried you'd been keeping busy. How convenient. Lately, I've heard you've been making daily rounds at the arcades. Oh, Dad, I've been penniless since yesterday. It feels nice to treat people at the arcade, but you wind up completely broke in the end. I don't really like making friends with the big shots from other schools, and there are never any girls there. Why did they hate arcades, huh? Well, whatever. That's water under the bridge. It was easy money after all. No use talking about what's no longer here. Let's focus on the present with haste. What do you say, rich kid Tobimaro? Where are you taking me with your super roundabout wealth today? Before anything else, there's a certain someone who'd like to have a word with you. Huh? Good morning, Kinomi. Could you tell me more about that easy money business? Kinomi's expression froze. Highly attuned to danger, he realized instantly that it was all over for him. On second thought, I need to get back to class and study, so can I leave now? Of course. You can head back inside as soon as I'm done grilling you. I'm not here to have my time wasted, so I'll be expecting a speedy confession. So what exactly did you mean by easy money? Your monthly salary is around 20,000 yen, right? With money like that, it must be difficult to live so lavishly for even 3 days. He was almost expecting her to ask him flat out whether he had committed a felony. What? First of all, that's none of your business. And what's all this about a confession? Now you're treating me like a criminal? Ain't that a bit tyrannical? What have I done that's illegal anyway? I don't know if it's an illicit activity yet. After all, we've only just started investigating some students who seem to be receiving a suspiciously sizable salary. A daily wedge of tens of thousands of yen would sound attractive to students, but the school was never informed of such a job. If this job is dangerous, it's the duty of the student council to give the students proper instruction. Aoko slowly walked toward Kinomi with a smile on her face. She had not spoken to him this amicably since the entrance ceremony. This was enough for Kinomi to understand that his time has come. This is the first I'm hearing of it. A student making big bucks, huh? But that's not the case for me, you know. I just used the money I've been saving up. I figured with Christmas coming up, I might as well make a big offering, you know, to chase away the bad luck. People typically save up before Christmas. Come on now, Tsukiji, be more considerate. Sorry to be harsh, but Kinomi's just afraid of being lonely on Christmas Eve, isn't that right? Poor thing. As a friend, it's rude to point that out. Aoko is bullshitting so much right now with that expression. Well, of course, I've got someone, though personally I think showing pity is much more offensive. Yeah, see, there's the troll face. Oh, so you've been saving up for Christmas Eve? Of course, unexpected revenue and savings are two different things. My father is the one who manages my accounts, so when I get an unexpected payment, I get yelled at and then he probes me for my dirty tricks. As for my room, my little sister keeps it under heavy surveillance. It's impossible to hide anything. Even the pornos I hid in the ceiling weren't safe. If they ever find an envelope loaded with 10,000 yen bills, I'd be handed over to the police without trial. Therefore, I have no choice but to spend all of my money as soon as possible. Kinomi chuckled awkwardly. But what was making him so embarrassed? That was still a mystery. The tragedy of the situation was that he did not realize he had said too much, and that his guilt was written all over his face. Yeah, he already said way too much. Huh? Unexpected revenue? You never suggested that earlier. No, I mean, yeah, that's it. It's just a little bonus from my job. I got an extra 5,000 yen or so. It's just a small bonus, super small, nothing secret about it. Give me the details on that 10,000 yen envelope. The longer I talk, the more confused I get. What's going on? Are you guys trying to pull the empty fort strategy on me or what? Hold on, that's way too close, Miss President. Your aura is way too overbearing, and frankly, you're giving me the creeps. Also, instead of loafers, you're wearing boots today. This unusual detail, the depths of my mind are being exploited again. Kinomi was slowly attempting to retreat. Oh my god. Kinomi, I told you I didn't want my time wasted. Maybe I need to help you understand. With force. The high-kicked devil added absent-mindedly. I get it. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything, I swear. That's true. I got this money through circumstance. I applied for a new job, and when I introduced Suzuki to them, they gave me a bonus. So it's a pyramid scheme. What was that? Aoko intended to squeeze all the information out of Konomi if he was working the same job as Sojiro. His answer not only confirmed her suspicions, but went even further than she had imagined. A sinking feeling began to give her a headache. If you recommend someone else, you get a bonus. That was a telltale sign of the infamous pyramid scheme. Yep, that's what I thought. Well, the thing is, Shizuki wanted to make more money, so I introduced him to a somewhat shady job. The events took place a few days before the exams. His classmate, broke for some reason, came to him for advice. Thus, Konomi recommended him a job that one of his acquaintances told him about. The employer was looking for an honest and kind-hearted young man. Regretfully, Konomi had to give up on the job and send a friend who matched his profile in his stead. I can't believe it. You're passing on a shady job to your classmate, and you still call yourself his friend? Konomi, how does that brain of yours actually work on a daily basis? Hey, you also recommend your friends to this kind of work, don't you? I'd even say that's what true friendship is all about. It helps Shizuki, and I also benefit from it. There's no such thing as selfless friendships anymore, you know. Right, but you can only say that if you're prepared to take the responsibility, don't you think? Huh? What a pain. Miss President, you're thinking too hard on friendship between men. We're basically all idiots, you know. Well, maybe you are. Looking at you, I have no difficulty believing that. Funny, isn't it? I wonder how you can hang out with a guy like him, Tobimaro. Okay, that's enough. Keep that lecture for another time, Alzaki. The guy's a natural-born moron. If you really want to set him straight, it'll take the whole day. No, that's enough. I can get back on the right track in less than a day. Though it slips away after I take a nap. See? But hey, since he's aware of his mental handicap, he's easier to hang out with than people who aren't aware of it. And besides, not many kids our age like him know the saying, helping your fellow man may not necessarily do him good. I agree, his personality must be a good match for yours. Huh? You got me good. What's gotten into you two? Even I would be embarrassed. That was a compliment, right? Absolutely not. In no way. I thought as much. Jesus Christ. Fucking low IQ Konomi here. Headed by Konomi, they arrived at the workplace in question. They passed through the new shopping district in front of the station and headed toward the depths of the second district, which were giving off a dubious aura. This was the exact location where Aoko lost sight of Sojiro. It's around here. Konomi, where exactly is this place? Over there. Konomi pointed to a 4-story office building. The entrance was on the first floor, and at first glance it looked like a residential building. The first floor hallway extended all the way to the back of the building. The stairs were located right past the entrance, at the very beginning of the hallway. Let's hide in that alley for a second. Aoko moved quickly to the discreet alley. Indeed, in the pleasure district, the presence of 3 students was likely to draw attention. So, what are they doing inside? You mentioned offices, but exactly what kind of work are they doing? You're asking me? Look, I don't really know anything about this. I just know what a friend told me. I have no idea what the hell they're doing in there. They just gave me money when I introduced Sojiro to them. The prime suspect admitted his ignorance upon arriving here. Konomi Hosuke, whom she assumed to be an accomplice or even the main offender, was in fact a mere passerby who was only good at getting in their way. I swear, I shake in my boots when I see someone as irresponsible as this guy. By the way, Konomi, have you ever watched a western? Do you know what always happens to the useless informant? Uh-oh. No, I don't really like movies, but I did watch Sailor Suit and Machine Gun. The lead actress caught my attention. I see, that's too bad. If only you'd watched for a few dollars more. Well, just so you know, the informant dies tragically every time. Wow. Aoko is surprisingly knowledgeable about, Western pop culture. This girl's clearly gonna put me down. Your Highness, we can't let that ferocious beast roam free. We have to find her a collar. Like the same one that Sojiro has. Tsukiji, something wrong? Do you know what's going on in this building? It seems like trouble. It's a company that just recently set up shop, operating scam sales. It uses the same system they use to sell English language practice videos. I knew it, Aoko said, dejected. English language practice videos? Konomi asked, puzzled. Is that for certain, Tobimaro? Yes, my father's secretary told me about it. There's no room for doubt. On the surface, it's a new sect, but in reality, they sell feather mattresses. From what I've heard, they're selling poor quality mattresses for exorbitant prices. They're renting their offices. They're probably going to keep going for another month before slipping away. Clearly, Sodro is being taken for a ride. He's the perfect patsy for those crooks. Tomomaru shrugged his shoulders weary. In the meantime, Aoko had completely entered battle mode. Alright, I'll beat them to a pulp, and then I'll plant Konomi on the school flag. Huh? Plant me? You're not simply hanging me up there. You're going to plant me? Splat in the spinal cord? You want to kill me? Oh no, wait, Aozaki. If we go along with your assumption, something's not quite right. Sodro got a lot of money, right? If that's true, we can't say he's a patsy. Oh yeah, that's right. I was so engrossed in Konomi's explanations that I forgot about the money. But in that case, this couldn't be... Yes, if he was one of the people being scammed, he'd only lose money. But if he's earning money, that's a different story. I don't want to think about it, but wouldn't that mean Sodro's actually in collusion with the sellers? No, there's no way. There's no way he's that smart. I can't believe it. Sodro may have become a member of this group of crooks? Huh? Nah, not a chance. Nobody could be fooled by Shizuki. That guy doesn't know how to lie anyway. I'm telling you, he could never sell a whole stock of lousy mattresses. Maybe Sodro didn't realize it was a nasty scam. He sells them thinking they're good quality with genuine honesty. Oh, I see. Now I get it. So his honesty is what gives him so much popularity with the elderly. He's doing pretty alright. Next time I see him, I'll ask him to share his profits. Ouch! Konomi's rehabilitation will be our next task. What do we do, Tomomaru? You think we should spy on them a bit more? Suzuki is underage, so if he's involved, do you think he'll still be charged with aiding and abetting? He's just an employee, so I don't think he's going to get any sort of prison sentence. That said, this business is our enemy's livelihood. It'll depend on what this contract Sodro signed says. Yes, that's right. At worst, Sodro is just one of their employees. Aoko suddenly donned a thoughtful look. Tomomaru had been working with her for over a year as a student council member. He did not need anyone to help him understand what she was thinking in times like this. If he's become a member of the staff, getting him out would be tricky. Even if the individual had no bad intentions, signed contracts are very powerful. So Aozaki, how far do you intend to take it? At the very least, suspending their business. If everyone can choose their own religion, we can just ask them to do it somewhere else. Just as I thought, it's written all over your face. And what do we do for Sodro? Shall we try to make him resign first? Of course. However, it's no longer just his problem. From the moment they tried to hire one of our students, it became ours as well. Whether it was Shizuki or not, I'm taking this company down. Well, I think we really need to get Kazuma Kiryu to help you out for this with this one. He'll just go in and punch everybody in the face, and that'll solve everybody's problems. I'm fine with that, but this kind of group is problematic. They act like moneylenders, so there's no legal issue. The most the cops can do is call them to order, and if you ever get in the way of their business, they have the right to claim damages. Rushing into things wouldn't do any good. No, if you're Kiryu, you'll just go in and punch everybody in the face. I know. First, we need to investigate the background of the company, the identity of the boss and the number of employees, as well as make a search for the victims, and... Aoko, plotting in a low but reckless voice, abruptly stopped speaking. What, Aozaki? Tomomaru, who was examining the building concealed in the shadows, noticed the new element as well. Aoko's gaze was directed at the crowd of people on the street. Oh, that's what I thought. It's him. A boy dressed in a familiar coat walked through the sordid district. He walked up to the front of the office building without the slightest hesitation and disappeared into the hallway, accompanied by the echo of his footsteps. Oblivious to the concern he was causing the group hidden in the shadows, the young man Shizuki Sodro appeared to be coming here to do honest work as he did every day with a light step, unaware he was being strung along. Oh god. This! Aoko tried her hardest to control her anger. Her shoulders were shaking. Wait, calm down, Aozaki. I know how you feel, but he doesn't have any bad intent. Damn it, this is pissing me off. She lowered her head and clenched her fists. The girl standing there was no longer the constantly indifferent girl, but the iron president of the student council, burning with a mix of indignation, a sense of justice, and her personal feelings. Man, this really does sound like Yakuza music now. Tomomaru, call Mino from the cheering section's team and ask him to gather around 20 of their aggressive-looking members immediately. It might get out of hand and become a brawl, so tell them to come prepared. Aoko ordered, dashing down the street. She looked like a mob leader charging at the enemy camp. Mino, the leader of the cheering section, what are you planning to do with 20 people? What does it look like? We're going head on. Looking for a legal route is too naive. These crooks are lining their pockets by tricking students. Kicking the crap out of them will be more than enough. To begin with, it's too small scale. Where did that name Authentic Light come from? And why come to this humid city to sell feather mattresses? Wait, calm down. What happened to the peaceful approach? Only cops have the right to use violence to crack down on thugs. Come on, get back here. Hey! Oh, well, that stopped before it even started. Well, of course, it's exactly because they're useless that we must act. If you're not fine with that, give me another plan. I'm not complaining, but first, you need to calm down. I don't need to suggest any other plan anyway. Just tell me what kind of plan you had in mind a moment ago. You mentioned legal means, didn't you? You must have an idea about what I was thinking, don't you? First, we investigate their activities, then we look into who the victims of the scam are, and finally, we take action by forming a consumer association. If they only target the elderly, it's probably because old-timers aren't very well informed about the state of the world. So if we help the elderly with things they don't understand, we ought to at least be able to form a victims association. Good, that's the right state of mind. That's right, even if each victim negotiates with them separately, it won't bother them either way. Forming a cohesive group is without a shadow of a doubt essential. Then what, we break the contracts and recover the defrauded money? That will probably prove impossible. Contracts are absolute, it pisses me off, but you can't object to what's been put down on paper. Now all we can do is limit the number of victims, cancel the loans, stop admissions, and retrieve as much money as possible. Since we're dealing with feather mattresses, a cooling off period must be granted. It might not be possible to return all the products, but that's the best we can do. Perfect. Let's do it that way, Aozaki. You don't have to act like a punk. We'll live in a democracy. Let's settle this peacefully. That's true, but it's easy to say when you haven't been ripped off. For the victims of this scam, what was taken from them won't be returned. It's not your job to worry about that. First, let's get in touch with Komori. She's from the shopping district after all. She'd be the perfect person for conducting a victim count. Kojika? I don't really want to involve her in trouble, but we don't really have a choice. Okay, I'll contact her. You call Mino, please. What? We don't need the cheering section with this plan, do we? We need them, but not just to play the tough guy act. They're also going to serve as intermediaries with the elderly. Those guys look menacing, but they're actually kind people, right? To use the cooling off period, you have to put it all down on paper, so they'll take care of all the paperwork instead of the elderly, who are unfamiliar with this process. I see, that's a good idea. There's strength in numbers. These guys definitely won't be expecting 20-ish reclamation articles. Good, Aoko and Tabumaro nodded. As for Konomi, who was standing on the sidelines, he was completely lost. Hey, what's a cooling off period? I've never heard of it. It means returning the purchased item and get against original price refunded. Japanese law passed this system sometime around 10 years ago. Didn't you know, Konomi? Not at all. Is it different from just returning the item? It's the same thing, except in this case, we have the government support. If Authentic Light uses the law as their shield, then on our end, we'll use it to pierce that shield. The elderly might not know much about these things, that's why we'll act on their behalf. In reality, there was an exhaustive list of items that could be returned to the seller under the system, and at this point, they were not sure whether the products sold by Authentic Light were protected by said system. If not, recovering the money using the system of the cooling off period would be impossible, and Aoko would have to take other measures. However, this concern would dissipate 30 minutes later, after investigating the mattresses that were sold. Jesus Christ, this is turning into like some... it's like a plot to expose this corrupt business. As soon as she set a goal for herself, Aoko no longer had any doubts. She set up her headquarters in a tea room across from the office, and made the student council members her soldiers. The one-day blitz began. Now that it's decided, let's act quickly. I'm entrusting you two with communication. Let's settle this within the day. The vice president was stunned that Aoko intended to finish this in one day. The upset instigator of the incident, who had become a messenger for the occasion, wondered why he even had to help. Aoko tackled reading some documents. That might help her find some means of action different from the cooling off period. Indeed, even if Tobimaro had praised this method, Aoko knew that the plan using the cooling off period would be difficult to pull off. All kinds of requirements were necessary to apply this rule. The most difficult one to meet would be the time elapsed from the date of purchase. The goods had to be returned within 8 days. Out of 30 victims, only 1 or 2 would meet these conditions. In this case, she had no other choice but to find a loophole in the law other than the cooling off period that was capable of preserving consumer rights. Let's see here. If a low-cost product was sold at an unreasonable price, the contract may be invalidated for vice crime resulting in excessive profits. However, this is judged on the basis of public order and morals. What the hell is this? The seller's practically always gaining from it no matter what. Courts have a policy of not charging on mere suspicion, so we won't get anything positive out of this by merely talking. But the situation was concerning. If the opponent turned out to be a group of experienced crooks, amateurs would not be able to compete against them with their limited knowledge. in the end, one would need to fight them on their own turf, luring a con man into a scam. So we get the money back they swindled through deception. Even then, they needed more information. Aoko stuffed all the collected data into her head with the same focus she had during her late semester cramming. Sorry I kept you waiting. For now, I've brought the addresses of 10 more victims and their mattresses. Thanks, as expected of you. When you're serious, you work really fast. Kamari Kojika, secretary of the student council, gave the list of victims to Aoko, who hastened to call Tobumaro's pager. The device could only send simple messages such as communication requests, but it was invaluable during a time when people still depended on telephone booths to communicate. Aoko relayed the names of the new victims to Tobumaro, who had called back the tea shop and asked him for an update on their current situation. So they were able to form the Victims Association, huh? Leave the partition to Aoyama, just in case. It would help us if he made business cards to thwart the opponent. As for the office, well, there is the fake company we created for the cultural festival. Use that phone number. I'll ask Mr. Yamashiro to wait for calls. So she's got like the entire school in on this. The Victims Association currently had just over 10 members. Its purpose was to help people who wished to cancel their order and return the goods. Furthermore, some people were not yet aware that they were swindled, and the size of the association would easily exceed 20 members once the situation was fully clarified. The fact that a good guy in a high school uniform politely persuaded them was a large factor. In general, grandfathers and grandmothers are quite generous with their grandchildren. But still, finding out so much about the situation, you're impressive. In the blink of an eye, you found 20 people who fit the description. The conditions you gave me were easy to understand. I just had to look for people who over 60 years of age, living alone and not part of the neighborhood association. It's the same method the vendors at Authentic Light use. But I don't think the problem will be solved so easily. The best we can do right now is protest... Aozaki? Hey, what's with the creepy smile? Aoko looked up after her friend had made this comment to her. Oh, well, I just found something very interesting. I thought this battle would yield few results, but the tide has turned. Look here, Kuma, the brand of these feather mattresses. Aoko showed Kamari the label on the mattresses. It displayed the familiar JIS brand. It reflected the quality of the industrial products, and the articles marked with it followed the regulations of the country's industrial standards, but... Huh? JLS? Yes, thanks to this, the contracts became our weapon. I thought we were dealing with veterans, but in reality, we came across amateurs who only attack the weak. Which means that if we do well, we could even get a full refund. The moment of victory will certainly be enjoyable. Aoko stood up, a wide smile on her lips. Humming, she dialed a number on the public phone without first beeping Tobumaro. One could hear the familiar ringing sound on the handset. Aozaki, you're not contacting Tsukiji to tell him our plans have changed? That's for later. For now, the most important thing is to choose a negotiator. Tsukiji and I aren't imposing enough for this role. And even if we took the lead, our chances of winning are still 50%. Depending on the outcome for the negotiations, we could get thwarted. The representative of the Victims Association must therefore be a most twisted demon. I thought it'd be you. Was I wrong? Come on, only an adult with the right social status can play this kind of role. Don't worry, Kimori. I know just the perfect person for this. Aozaki's sister. Aoko's sister. Like they say, you have to fight fire with fire. In this city, there's a person whose job only consists of bossing others around. She must be bored and probably doesn't have anything to do today either. We have to make her work from time to time. Against her, loan sharks or sect founders would lose their heads in less than an hour and flee barefoot into the mountains. Aoko placed the phone against her ear while putting her snide remarks on hold. In the meantime, it had long since stopped ringing. Hello, I hope I'm wrong, but you weren't talking about me just now, were you, Aoko? The device let out the clear tone of a woman. After this shameless greeting, Aoko laughed, as if her prey fell for her provocations. Oh boy, I wonder who it is. Oh, the nun. I've always known this, but you never show proper respect toward your elders, Aoko. Huh? Back from finishing what they had to do, Tobumaro and Kanomi opened their eyes wide. Indeed, the individual Aoko called was completely unexpected and did not fit in a place like this. Thank you very much, Eureka. Your coming here really is life-saving. I already explained everything to you on the phone, but maybe you want a few more details. No, thank you. Ritsuka had already given me a report on Authentic Light. You have nothing more to tell me. You're in a pretty bad mood, and that's good too. I trust you to attack them with this spirit. When you reveal yourself out in the open, there's usually a normal person or two who easily passes out in front of you, right? Huh? Seriously? This young lady is one of the nuns from Ida Church, right? I'm one of their secret admirers. Oh shit, now's not the time. Pleased to meet you. My name is Kenobi Hosuke, and I'm not on very good terms with Aozaki. Immediately realizing that Aoko and the nun were not getting along very well, Kenobi casually tried to increase his chances. The nun flashed an angelic smile at the mischievous young man. You're very kind. I am Susei Yuika, nun of the Ada Church. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Hosuke. Wow, incredible. She really is a nun. President, you brought back an incredible trump card. By the way, Miss Yuika, what are you going to do? I mean, I'm glad you're here, you know. I can pretty much guess her role. Pleased to meet you, Sister Yuika. I'm the Vice President of the Misaki High School Student Council, Tsukiji Tobimaro. As for Tobimaro, he looked gloomy as if he understood how things were going to turn out. Indeed, after the discovery of the illegal JLS brand, and since the mattresses were obviously counterfeit, Aoko had developed a plan to refund the victims in full and drive authentic light out of their city. He had understood that Aoko's solution turned out to be the nun in front of them. I was convinced that you'd only use the evidence to get an amicable agreement, refund the victims, and drive these guys out by threatening to sue them. In any case, you really are a dangerous woman. You don't just want to drive them out, but you also want to take all their money away from them. Huh? Why would it go that far? What? Not only is the sister hot, but she also has such a big influence? It's not her status, but her compassion that makes her so strong. Here, Yuika, these are the joint signatures of the victims of the association. The cheering section is on standby in case something happens. You want to bring some of them along? Let's see, the repercussions may be hard to manage if they ever lose their minds and try to attack us, so 5 people should be enough to deter them. Besides, I wouldn't mind if you came with me. Huh? What's the meaning of this? Don't tell me you'll be the one doing the talking. The president is better for this role, isn't she? It's okay, don't worry about it. She may not look like it, but Yuika knows all about trouble. Right, Yuika? Not as much as you. Very well, we have a common interest for once. After all, it is clear that the people in this office are in violation of the law. Sins must be atoned for. The individuals who oppress honest people, especially our compatriots, deserve appropriate punishment. I expected nothing less from the fearsome demonic nun. I'm counting on you. After all, you guys have always been good at crushing your rivals in business. I don't need you to remind me. 2 doctrines on the same territory do not mix well. Well, maybe they'll actually get these guys to run these guys out of town. The duo entered the office building shoulder to shoulder with sparks of hostility. The 5 suspicious-looking members of the cheering section followed them with heavy steps. Only Tobimaro, who shrugged his shoulders, and Konomi, completely lost, remained outside on the streets. I'm confused. What is Aozaki planning to do with that beauty? Well, it's obviously an act of unspeakable cruelty. Aozaki is the type to completely crush her opponent as soon as she possesses their weaknesses. She plans on using evidence of illegal sales to force them to terminate the contracts before filing a lawsuit. It's the nun's job to sue them. She has more persuasive strength by virtue of her status than a simple student like Aozaki. Besides, we often hear some nasty rumors about the church. These crooks will be lucky if they can just get away from this mess without their money. Well, Tobimaro sighed as he set foot toward the office building. Ugh. Huh? You're going too? You're not afraid? I'm not going in there. It gives me goosebumps. I just have some business to attend to. You should go back to your remedial classes. I'll give you your reward next time. Remedial classes are already over, you know. It's evening already, if you haven't noticed. Evening. I mean, it was fun, so I'm glad. Without a doubt, this half-day went by in the blink of an eye. Then, waving his hand at him, Tobimaro disappeared through the office entrance. Despite having some questions, Kenomi also left the scene after hearing the sound of a glass window shattering on the 3rd floor of the office building. Holy shit. A wise man does not approach danger after all. Yeah, I'm guessing their negotiations are going well. The negotiations ended without a hitch. That sounds like it, from the sound of the breaking glass. In the building, the sister had blown away the desk in the middle of the row with an elegant kick. The problem was thus resolved peacefully and without any bloodshed, as the 10 Commandments had intended. That's how Aozaki Aoko viewed the room, after having fully suppressed the office in just 30 minutes. The big desk was lodged in the window as a result of the motion of the sister's arm, reminiscent of a crane. The salesmen were shivering and chattering their teeth in a corner of the room, as if they had seen the devil himself. The sister, with the help from the 5 members of the cheering section, collected the certificates of interest from the office, as well as some other things. Huh? However, Aoko found no trace of what she was looking for. Puzzled, she addressed the salesmen, who were huddled in a corner of the room. "Say, 3 hours ago, did you see a young man around here? One that looks like he couldn't hurt a fly? He didn't just come out of the building, so he should still be here." The salesmen shook their heads. There was nothing like a naive student in the office. "What's the meaning of this?" she thought, even more puzzled. Oh well. The student council president was satisfied enough with having done a good deed. "Oh, that's a little bit suspicious." When Tobimaro entered the building, he continued straight into the corridor. Upon entering, he took a quick glance at the stairs leading to the upper floors, then passed in front of several rooms available for rent before arriving at the emergency exit of the back. Wait a minute. What if it was just somewhere else in the building and, like, Sojiro was actually working for another company? And I kind of doubt it, though, because, I mean, Kenobi pretty much did confirm that Sojiro was working for that company. Tobimaro was familiar with the layout of the 2nd District. But I think it would be funny if this was all just some huge misunderstanding. If his memory served him, old bungalows, unaffected by urban expansion, were lined up behind the building. There were iron sheet houses for rent, remnants of a bygone era. Even though the area was swallowed up by the shadows of the modern 2-story apartment buildings, the corner of the town still lived on. Exiting the back door, there was a river for wastewater treatment in front of him. On the other side of the river and a fence, the bungalow area was visible. Next to the building, a bridge crossed over to the other riverbank. It was like a side road that only people in the neighborhood would know about. Well, that's one hell of a shortcut. You can't always rely on maps. As Tobimaro walked toward the bridge, a familiar young man came out of a bungalow. The individual wearing a coat was undoubtedly Suzuki Sojiro. "Come back tomorrow." With an old woman, probably the owner of the place, watching him leave, Sojiro crossed the bridge. "Huh? Vice President? Hey, funny coincidence, isn't it, stud?" Inevitably, they met face to face on the bridge. Sojiro had a discomfited look on his face. When Tobimaro saw this, he was convinced. This young man's new job must have been much more overwhelming than just participating in a scam. So it was a misunderstanding. They unwittingly walked back home together and stopped on a footbridge. "You have family around here?" "No, I don't. I'm just talking to an old lady that a mediator introduced me to." Sojiro casually revealed the information that he had not told Aoko when she pressured him. "Can you really talk to me about it like that? Don't you have to respect professional confidentiality or something?" "No, I don't really have to keep it a secret. It just felt like something that I shouldn't talk about. You saw me coming out, and honestly, I wanted to talk about it with someone. I just need to vent. So if you want to listen to me, that's perfect." Tobimaro leaned against the bridge's rail and encouraged him to continue. Once revealed, Sojiro's story turned out to be most mundane. His new job was that of a caregiver in one of the bungalows in the area. The slight problem was that the old woman was a widow and that her son had not given her any news since he left for the city. "At first, I was just helping with household chores," he said with a smile halfway between regret and embarrassment. Perhaps it was revulsion toward this injustice. His bitter, tormented smile was filled with dark feelings. Slightly surprised, Tobimaro immediately slapped his own cheeks. Never would he have imagined that this boy could express such emotions. Tobimaro admonished himself, shameful for selfishly convincing himself of such a thing. "You rarely look so glum. What, you have a problem with the son who left? Because he abandoned his mother in need and lives his life as he sees fit?" "I'm not sure. I think it's a strange story for sure. But I can't blame her son, because..." He stopped halfway through his sentence. The son probably did not hate his mother, but the city. He had simply left this place because he found another he liked more. Sojiro swallowed these words with reluctance. "I received my full salary the very first time, but still, 100,000 yen for a single month of work. I think it's too much. I don't need this much money," he muttered to himself. The old woman thanked the young man. Sojiro's helplessness must have charmed her. "So, I was right. This was just a huge misunderstanding. That's hilarious." She immediately trusted him and treated him as her own grandson in just a few days. "I kinda had a sneaking suspicion it might have been." I'm frankly really happy about that, but the problem was that she asked him to come back the next day. When they parted, she would give him a large amount of money and ask that he would not forget her. "Oh, you got this much money just for that?" "Yeah, she said she wanted me to replace her grandson. That since she trusted me, I could act as if I were her grandson in return for the payment." "What's with that? I don't buy that one bit, as if a grandson runs on money. It's no different from a caregiver." "No, she told me she didn't pay the caregivers. She says she can't trust them. The old woman only believes in money." Was it because she had been living alone for some time? Or had she been alone because of her stubbornness? In any case, the old woman lost all ability to believe in human benevolence. To her, family ties were a pipe dream. Left by her family years ago, she could only rely on what savings she had at hand. Thus, conversely, her last support, the money she had stubbornly saved without waste, probably became her only link to others. This is ridiculous. In the end, she's just buying off a stranger. She can't replace her own grandson. The old woman knows that better than anyone else, but even if she knows it's just an act, she has nothing else to believe in. What she wants most right now is the grandson who moved away from her. In return, she gave me the thing in which she believes most, a token of her sincerity. She was not buying him off. The old woman had shown her gratitude by giving away what she trusted most, because she had sincere faith in Sojiro, without realizing that a stranger would see it as a repulsive act. You've put yourself in an awkward situation again. Well, don't worry about it too much. It's a nice story, no? An old woman who loved money more than life now decides to devote herself to her memories. That's honorable. You think? I hope that's the case. A heavy shadow remained over Sojiro's expression as he nodded. What's the matter with you? After all, knowing you, you didn't use a penny of the money you received, did you? By using it, she'll eventually lose her pension. That's why you didn't tell Ozaki, because at the time you intended to give it all back to her, right? How did you know that? Well, just my intuition. It was better for Sojiro to keep quiet about his daytime efforts. He would surely have been cursed out later on by the Iron President of the Student Council if he had spoken. I see, but the most troublesome part of the story, Tobimaro, is that the lady has no grandson. Huh? Tobimaro opened his mouth wide, stunned, then sighed. So that's what it was, he thought. A deceased husband, a son who left town, and a grandson who did not keep in touch. What an abundant and ordinary life. In this world, some people can only move forward by believing in such what-ifs. It will never stop. A tragic life only conceals even more tragic events. I sometimes let my guard down toward the city. Everyone looks happy, but looking behind the scenes, that's not the case. Why is that? I feel like the whole city is deceiving me. Tobimaro leaned further over the rail and looked down at the busy streets. Sojiro's troubles were, in the end, all about his confusion with his environment. An old woman who had lived alone until her twilight years. Tobimaro's whole family, who considered him an enemy from an early age. In the end, they were just personal problems. The boy's opponent was rather the mysterious city itself. As a result of the wealth brought by modernization, the misery of the poor increased. The gap between people widened, both in wealth and in the goodness of heart. Large cities were increasingly strict toward the weak. For the young country boy who had only known a system of mutual aid, this way of being posed the unbearable question of why. Sojiro, do you like the city? I don't know yet. What about you? Well, I feel pretty much the same way. I love it as much as I hate it, but there are times when I think that none of it even matters. But then, it's the exact opposite of you, isn't it? Thanks to the city, I can ignore other people's troubles, thinking there's worse elsewhere. It may be futile in the busyness of it all, but you can't discard your integrity. Some places are worse? It's not exactly that. It's not that there's worse, but that we can deal with it. It must have crossed your mind already when you were working. The city functions in such a way that no gaps are created. It's done in such a way that any gaps created, whether an absence or a vacant position, are immediately filled. It seems obvious, but in reality it's just an extremely well-organized community. A stranger who was totally unknown to us the day before can become an indispensable neighbor the next day. It also happens that a new building is built on a street corner that didn't exist before. It's like a grandiose surgical procedure performed on a daily basis, and despite this, the city still works well. It really makes you admire it. I really think it's a spur-of-the-moment thing. I live not only by my own means, but also through the invisible efforts of people I don't know, and it's thanks to these strangers that I can wander around like this. It's a give and take. To be honest, I'm astounded by the balance that must be necessary to make such a thing work. Just like the mountains, the city is alive. Apparently, Tobimaro did not really appreciate the shape of this organism. But even so. I see. You respect it, right? Well, it's embarrassing, but that's it. As a man of the city, he was grateful that unacquainted people helped each other without realizing it. In fact, you're asking far too much. No one lives from birth in a place they enjoy. After all, you can't choose where you're born. It's simple, but you have no choice but to start loving the place you decide to live in. Ugh! Tobimaro slapped Sojiro's hunch back. The latter then straightened up, his eyes wide open. But Tobimaro, what if we can't love that place, despite our decision to live there? In that case, all you have to do is settle elsewhere, or you can spend your time running away. Wandering is also part of life. Sojiro held his breath in admiration of Tobimaro's eye-opening statement. He left a strong impact on him. Not for the suggesting escape, but because he had said so outright. He was impressed by his freedom, and his claim that he could abandon this town just as easily as he was born here. I never thought I'd hear you say the words run away. You can run away if you have a destination in mind. Well, obstinately seeking victory or success is not a bad thing. Fortune and fame are good things. But I believe that the obligation to win constantly is an obstacle to me. I find it suffocating, and I don't have the strength to keep moving forward despite the rules that hold me back. Like Alzaki, the lighter your background, the better. Is it better to live without pretension? No, it's not a matter of pretense or caution. I would like a life full of adventures, or, well... it's not that either, Tobimaru stopped, frowning. What he desired was simple. I know, I want to live a fun life. That was all. Tobimaru revealed his ideal in hopes that it would put his troubled friend on track. Are you a comedian? Tobimaru slumped his shoulders, disappointed. No, that's true. You're right, actually. Thinking on it closer, he acknowledged that Sojiro was not really in the wrong. Humanity's wishes have no limits. No one will ever have a perfect life. In that case, he would be among those who succeeded in their lives if, in his last breath, he could say that he had a pleasant life with a smile on his face. I swear, it must be Alzaki's influence. It's like a risky bet. I'm sure she loved Bonnie and Clyde stuff. My word, Tobimaru said, scratching his head. He, who was so pessimistic a year earlier, now allowed himself to speak in a pretentious tone. Anyway, by dint of being depressed because of other people's problems, the sun is about to set. Actually, it's almost dark already. We loitered a lot. You're right. I'm sorry. I'm sorry I kept you. Do you have something to do? Well, I think I'm going to go home quietly. You should go back before nightfall as well. If you get asked what you were doing, explain everything without omitting the slightest detail. This story is not as sordid as you think it is. Tobimaru's words plunged Sojiro into a gloomy silence. Deep down, he could not accept what he had done to the old lady. If Sojiro had never visited her home, she never would have found despair in her life. It was because of this regret that he wanted to talk to someone about it. You think you did something cruel, don't you? Like showing the old lady something she'll never be able to get back. When the core of it was pointed out, he was silent. Tobimaru quickly relieved him of his regrets. You're mistaken. It's just a presumption, Sojiro. Listen, if the grandmother thinks she's failed in life, she just has to do what she's capable of doing now. Fortunately, she has plenty of money, right? In that case, ask her to help people. There are a lot of unfortunate people she can help with the money. Afterwards, if she takes pride in her action, then she can be confident that she did a good job. At least, I'd feel better. But that would make her suffering disappear. Forget about the things you're unable to change. Now there's a problem she could solve. That's good enough, right? If she later says, excuse me, but I want to use the money for society, others and myself, so please give it back, then she would have won something in this story. She would have found a reason to be much more honorable than paying a fake grandson. On the other hand, if she says, I've done my part and you can have the rest of it, then you'll have won. In that case, her grandson would have been more important, and you can return home with a lot of money. I see. Tobimaru's brilliant judgment led to a flash of enlightenment in Sojiro. Sorry. Thank you, Tobimaru. His bitter smile had already disappeared. Following this discussion, he decided to do everything possible to ensure the old woman would choose the former. From Tobimaru's point of view, this lack of hesitation exemplified a dazzling kind of freedom. Don't worry about it. You have my thanks too. See you later, Sojiro. I'll see you back in school. Although Tobimaru said this goodbye in a gruff tone, Sojiro did not take offense at his attitude and left, saying farewell with a smile on his face. Tobimaru smiled with a sincerely embarrassed look and left the bridge and turned. It was 4:30 in the afternoon. Night would soon fall on the midwinter streets. Well, goddamn. That was a pretty lengthy misunderstanding, huh? I'm home. It's even colder tonight. When he arrived, Aoko and Alice were waiting in the living room. They did not seem to have had dinner yet. Seated on the sofas, Aoko looked grumpy while Alice was somewhat agitated. Were you perhaps waiting for me to come back? Alice nodded slightly, while Aoko downright refuted it. Alzaki, maybe it's my imagination, but you look weirder than last night. More or less, Sojiro had become capable of grasping a situation, but the terms he used remained clumsy. What the hell are you saying? Aoko wanted to retort, but she resisted as hard as she could. In fact, she was not as angry as he imagined. However, Is something wrong, Aoko? No, something's wrong with him, I'm telling you. Her efforts were shattered by Alice's casual interference. See, you're weird, Sodro observed without saying a word. What are you blaming him for? I find him to be relatively calm tonight. In Sodro's opinion, Alice's reply also had its share of incongruities. It's fine. I thought I'd keep quiet until you got to it on your own, but I'll take the initiative. Sodro, does the name Authentic Light ring any bells? No, not at all. This is the first I'm hearing of it. That's what I thought. After all, your name wasn't on the list. How did I make this mistake? Oh, she realizes it now too. Oh shit. She fucked up. I wouldn't go so far as to say I wasted my energy, but another bad rumor about me is about to form. Aoko sighed deeply and leaned back against the sofa in a slumped position. Taking advantage of Alco's moment of weakness, a blue star flew dashingly from the conservatory and landed on the table. Uh-oh. I saw it. I saw everything. The neighborhood is already spreading the rumor. It said that the Aozaki girl once again crushed a store with only a finger lifted. It's scary as hell. With only a finger. When will you stop creating all these urban legends? LOL. Chirp, chirp, chirp went the robins, singing praises of Alco's heroic struggle. Alco shooed him out with only a flick and then slowly got up. Looks like you didn't bring any money today. Are you done with that job? No, I'm still doing it. The money was entrusted to me, so this morning I opened a bank account to deposit it in. Entrusted to you? Yes, entrusted to me. I'll probably have to return it in its entirety. So this is kind of like a loan in a way. Then Sodro took off his coat before talking about his work as a caregiver. He kept it concise. He only told them how everything started and the conclusion he reached with his friend a moment earlier. At first, Aoko was surprised by his unusual story, but when he was done telling it, Yeah, that's pretty much what I thought. It's a relief. I'd even say I'm disappointed. That's right, no matter how hard you try, you're really not the kind of person who would do anything wrong, she said in her usual offensive tone. In the meantime, while Aoko sighed with relief, the other girl silently grew pale in front of her. Wait, so that means the money isn't yours, Shizuki? No, it belongs to someone else. Alice? That's one hell of a face you're making. Are you alright? Not exactly. I'm fine, but I placed an order. What? Alice carefully handed them the menu of the Sobo restaurant and tea shop, as if she was handling a fragile object. You already were planning on spending the money. This was enough for Aoko to grasp the ins and outs of the situation and make her go white. Then Alice took out a note with even more caution. On what appeared to be a hastily written note, a phenomenal number of orders followed one after the other, enough for more than 3 people. What? No, impossible. You already ordered? It's just that I thought it was about time for him to treat us to some good food. Alice, with her head down, looked at Sodro with a vaguely accusing eye. That's not his fault. Huh? Me? Why? Because you gave her groundless hope, of course. Don't you remember her looking giddy, saying we'd have a feast today? Yeah, this is all your fault, Sodro. You did this. Sodro was struck for the second time today by a flash of enlightenment. Now that she brought it up, Alice had indeed said something like that the night before. Yes, you gave your approval on that night, Alice said, acting as if she was not the one at fault. No, it's true, Alice clearly made a mistake, but you're also at fault. Carrying around a bunch of money is dangerous. You learned a good lesson, didn't you? Both of you, give up and share the bill. No, I can't do that. I already deposited the money and only have 500 yen on me. I see, even between the two of us, that wouldn't be enough. I never tried, but let's see if we can cancel a delivery. The Koonji mansion was overrun by despair. Aoko looked at them at first as if it was not her problem, then sighed a sigh of resignation. Pampering them would not do any good, but it was surely the irony of fate that led to this situation. It was bound to happen sometime. It's okay, I'll pay for it. I had unexpected earnings today, so let's be crazy and spend it all. The duo looked up, bewildered by Aoko's unexpected proposal. You're treating us, Aozaki? Impossible. I can't believe it. Are you sure about this, Aoko? We can't cancel it anymore since you called them already, right? If you called earlier, the delivery guys must be going up the slope right now. Also, it was thanks to Sodro that I received this money. It's a token of appreciation from the Victims Association I helped. Well, I mean, it all worked out somehow, so don't worry about it. I wasn't comfortable with it anyway, so I thought I'd donate it back to the shopping street. To be honest, it's a bit of a waste. Ooh, her roommates cheered. Aoko slumped down on the sofa while watching their relieved states. Ill-gotten gains are short-lived, they say, and that's quite right. My little pay will go up in smoke. Thus, the curtain fell on the minor incident of the gold mine that suddenly fell from the sky. The blue star once again settled on the table. Indeed, it really was a nasty business. The robin pretended to smoke a cigarette while continuing to chirp. Well, that's how it is. We will remember this incident as the Carnegie case, so as not to forget how Miss Alco only went running around in circles like a duck. With his charming eyes, the bluebird mocked the most helpful and benevolent person of the day. And then he got smacked for it. When a flicker sent him scurrying, someone knocked on the front door. Alice had ordered the rice omelet from her favorite Western restaurant and an assortment of cakes from the tea shop. Well, if that's the menu, then it's not too bad for a reward, the modern witch thought to herself as she perked back up. Holy shit, that was a trip, alright.